Hi, this is Sandy. Today we're going to work on perspective, but there's a few things we got to clean up. I would like to thank the people posting their art. And Amber, you took an idea that I had and I used what, 14 different type of paper roll things, and you used just 2 or 3. That was fantastic. Then there's been some requests. Jaden and Zeke have both liked the perspective lessons. So I think perspective is a good thing to work on for the next couple lessons. And I'm going to try and take it slow so that you feel very, very, very good about what you're doing. That your perspective on life is good. Your perspective on your art is good. So let's talk about it. Okay, let's get started. We've got our paper. We've got a right angle, and I'll explain that as we use it. We've got a ruler. We've got our pencils and an eraser. And I use my nice little bowl that I just got back out of the kiln. It's kind of pretty, isn't it? Look at the back. This is handmade glass. Won't find it anywhere. Okay, so let's start. In lesson 2, we talked about a perspective of as if we were in the clouds looking down. Our perspective was we were a cloud. So we saw things as a cloud would see them. A perspective is a particular way to consider something. So a cloud, us being a cloud, we understood that. So you can go back to lesson 2 and you can see some of the posts from Jaden and Emma. And I know Zeke isn't posting things, but I keep hearing about Zeke doing things. I'd love to see some of Zeke's work. Okay, so the next week, lesson 3, or the next lesson, we were an ant, and we were in the middle of the street looking up, and it was a city street, so there were lots of tall buildings around, and we could see the clouds, and we could see the buildings. Our perspective that day was that of an ant. Different things have different perspectives. It's what we see. It's how we understand what is important and what isn't. When we were an ant, it wasn't important how the clouds looked. What was important was how we saw up to the clouds. When we were a cloud, it wasn't important if we thought about what the ant saw. We were thinking about what we saw. So our perspective changed. These were one-point perspectives. This was our point, and this was our point. Then we moved on in lesson 4, and we thought, what if our name was up here instead of a point? But we still had to have a perspective or a vanishing point so that we could draw the letters correctly and make them disappear. So now we've got a different perspective. It was an angle or a direction in which a person looks at an object or a point of view. So if I were this C down here, I wouldn't be very important. But if I'm this C up here, I am very important. So our perspective has changed. Once again, we used one point to figure out how we were seeing things. So let's move on, and we are still going to use a one-point perspective this week, or this lesson. I want to make a horizon line. My horizon line I'm gonna have a horizon line on every picture, and I'm going to make it at 6 inches. So I'm measuring 6 inches on my paper, up from the bottom. I'm drawing with a ruler because I need a straight line. My horizon doesn't have hills, it doesn't have mountains, and it doesn't have valleys. It's a flat line. When we used color and we set our horizon line when we would paint a picture, the colors wouldn't be as bright as they were up front. They would be dull back here. Our vanishing point that we make is on our horizon line. And we could make it a vanishing point way up here, but we're going to make it right on our horizon line today. And I'm going to be at any point on this line. It doesn't matter if I'm in the middle, doesn't matter if I'm on the edge, but it's going to be my perspective. I could be, if this is how it would look if I were in the middle. This is how it would look if I were on the edge. But we're going to figure that out. Okay, so we're going to draw a two-dimensional view of what we're seeing. We've got, in a 2D, we've got the height and the length of what we see. So let's say our eyes meet the horizon line. We only see what's on the horizon line. So here's an eye, and here's an eye, and there's our nose. We're just looking straight at that. And I'm going to use my right angle because I want it to be parallel to the bottom of my paper. When I make a house, I can make it parallel to the bottom. This line, I can make it perpendicular. You know what perpendicular means? It makes a right angle. This makes a right angle. Okay, I'm going to measure the difference, or the middle, to find the middle point here. And it's basically 2.5 inches. So half of 1 inch, or half of 2 inches is 1 inch. And half of the space between 1/2 inch is 1/4 inch. So I can look at 1 1/4 inch and pretty much get the middle point. There we go. Then I could come up here to know that my roof line is exactly half of the house. I could then take my ruler, I went a little bit over it, and draw my house. My house has a door. Now, if I were to draw the door right now, I'd probably go like that. And all of a sudden, because my line isn't straight, look at the difference between the door I draw now. I want nice straight lines. That door just doesn't make it. Same thing when we draw a chimney. As long as we keep this against the bottom of our paper or our pad, our chimney line is going to be nice and straight. We don't see anything else because all we have in a two-dimensional area is the height and the length. So we can draw another house. Maybe I want to make this house smaller. And I don't even have to go 1/2. My roof line can be different. I can say my roof line is right there. And I can draw it this way. And this way. Now I didn't use my right angle, and you can see my chimney's kind of leaning. Take the time and use your right angle. Now when we can draw anything here, and I can make a car. I can put the wheels on it. I could make a cat. I could make a tree. But everything from this perspective, 2D, is straight on. You can draw this, you can color it, you can decorate it, but you're not going to get any depth. In order to get depth, we're going to have to move on and get a vanishing point. So let's move on to our next part of the lesson. Okay, let's get to our 3D. We need depth. Now, in order to have depth, we have to have the vanishing point. The perspective that we see now is we're going to see how high something is. We're going to see how long something is, but we're also going to see how deep it is. We're still only going to use one point for our vanishing point. Let's go ahead and let's find our horizon line. To me, what's important here isn't that it's 1/2 as much as it's even. Our horizon isn't going to have a hill. So I'm going to measure my paper. I've got 11-inch paper, and I know 7 is 1/2 of the paper, or 6 and 5.5 is 1/2 of the paper. So I'm going to use my vanishing point as a 6. So I'm marking 6 inches up on my paper. Your paper might be different sized. Your paper might be 8 by 10. So 4 would be your middle, and maybe you would want your vanishing point at 5, or your horizon line at 5. I'm drawing this. I want it to be dark so that I don't erase it, because I am going to be erasing on this piece of paper. You can put your vanishing point anywhere along this line. I can put it in the middle, or I can put it over to the side. I'm going to make this vanishing point big enough that I can see it and you can see it. So there's a nice big vanishing point. And I'm going to label it for you. You don't have to label yours. So the first thing I'm going to do is get to the center of that vanishing point and draw a line. This line I am not going to erase. I'm going to measure the distance between these two lines. It's 7 inches. 1/2 of 7 inches is 3.5 inches. Do you know how I figured that out so fast? Because I know that 3 inches is 1/2 of 6 inches, because 3 times 2 equals 6. I had 1 inch left over, and I divided that inch into a half. So that's 3 1/2. Okay, now this line, I'm not going to draw real straight or real filled in. I know that as I get farther away, this line is going to be a dotted line, and the dots are going to get smaller, smaller, and closer and closer and closer and closer and closer and closer, closer. So it looks like it's, if I were moving along it, they'd remain the same, but they aren't. Right? That's just a little trick. We'll talk about that later. Now, I want to make some telephone poles along the side of my street. So I want to make this line light. This is just for me. Okay? I'm going to use my right angle because I want it to be a right angle or parallel on this side. to the bottom of the paper. So I'm going to start right here and go from my line there to that line there. And I'm going to move up again. And I'm going to move up again. Now, as these get farther and farther away, they almost look like they're getting closer together, but they really aren't. Okay, I overshot some of mine. I don't want them ending in the street, so I'm going to take this time and I'm going to erase them and make sure that the line goes all the way up. Okay, now this line, this telephone pole has some cross beams. I'm going to get to my vanishing point, and one of the cross beams is going to end here, and the other one is going to end here. No, that's not right. I'm going to go. Okay. Now I'm going to take this, and I want it to be parallel to the bottom, and I'm going to go from this line here to this line here. I'm going to have to get this pretty much even on. It's going to have to go 1 inch out and 1 inch out there to this point. I'm using the same vanishing point, but I'm making different lines along here. Okay, I'm going to erase some of these lines so you could follow me. Now the lines I'm following is this line and this line right here. Let's go back over how I found that. I drew a line to be the crossbar of our telephone pole. You could find that line this way by going to the right angle of the side of the paper, and that would have been just fine. Okay, then I'm going to come up here. In fact, I think I'm going to do that all the way. I erase some of my telephone poles. There we go. And I'm going to go okay. Now I can erase this part. Let's get these lines, these telephone poles in here so that we can see what we're drawing. So I'm going to take my colored pencil, and I know that my telephone pole has a little bit of wood there, so I'm not making it a line anymore. These are crosses, aren't they? That's what we're making, is crosses. Remember colored pencils? We weren't up on the tips. We were sort of on the side. Okay, that last one, I couldn't see the cross point anymore, so I didn't even put it in there. Now we can go and we can erase. Okay, I erased my lines. I left the street line. Now I want to make wires on my lines.
So I'm giving myself a point and a point and a point and a point, just about the same size on both of them. Okay, this line here starts right here and goes to here with a little bit of a curve. This line here starts here and goes here, but we got to go through this. So I'm going to go here, stop, start, stop. So it looks like it's all behind there. It starts here, goes here. That one goes in front. So don't get confused. What goes in front of the next pole, this side goes in front of the next pole, but this side goes behind all the poles. Pretty soon it just kind of goes away. These are our telephone lines. We could probably come off here and literally take it right off of the paper to this point right there. This one would go right off the paper to this point right there. And I could come down like that. And I could come down like that. Okay, that's when it's sitting right on the road. But we're going to have some street lights over here or some lollipops, depending on what kind of road you want. And I'm going to take my vanishing point and give myself a little bit of space to have a curb that I don't want my light poles or my light poles or my lollipops to have a problem with. So they're going to sit over here, and that way they won't get hit by a car. Then we're going to go, maybe our light pole goes up to this height, and then our light or our lollipop is going to go up to this height. So I can draw a circle. And if you'll notice, these circles are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Okay, let's color in our lollipops. This is just colored pencils. Picking any color. And our lollipops are going to have cellophane on them. And they're going to have little bits of curly cues at the bottom of it. So I'm putting it up here, almost like a balloon tail. I'd say if I had a name for this, it would be an upside down V. Okay? Now I'm going to take my right angle, because I know I can get a nice straight line off of this. And I can put it at the bottom, and I can use a different color for my street light or my pole. I'm only going to be going to this line here like this. I left space back so it isn't sitting right on the road and going to get hit by a car. Okay. Now we can erase these lines. These are just our guidelines so that our perspective doesn't change. We're standing at one spot right here, and we're looking at our vanishing point straight ahead. Perspective never changes. That's the important thing right now, is to know that we don't change our mind in the middle of this picture. We're no longer two-dimensional. We're giving it depth. Okay, let's go ahead and let's draw some trees. Here's our vanishing point. And all of our tree trunks, this doesn't happen in the real world, but in our world, all of our tree trunks are going to be the same height. Can be big trees. And all of our tree, the tops of our trees, our foliage, is going to be the same height. Okay, now we got to get rid of this line right here so we aren't drawing it. And I'm not really getting rid of it, I'm just lightening it up for myself. Okay, let's draw our tree trunk. Let's go with some brown tree trunks. And I see my line down here. Now, if you need your right angle, just to put it down here so that you know your trees aren't falling over, use it. Okay, and as they get farther, farther away, we don't see much of those trees anymore. Okay, now our foliage, our leaves, whatever you want to call it, are going to be up here all the way to the top of our line. This is a 1-point vanishing point. We aren't seeing the other one that shows us how thick that tree is. We're just seeing how deep it is, okay? So let's not get confused and try to make these trees look like they're round. All right, let's get rid of some of these lines again. We don't want to see them. Now let's assume that all of the cars on our road are made the same way. There's no trucks here. And all of the wheels are the same. Everybody has 4 wheels. Okay, so our vanishing point remains the same, and it's got to fit in the lane that we've made. Okay, that's good. He's not going to hit the telephone pole. And this side, we're American, so we drive on the right side of the street, is going to be the back end of the cars. So to draw our car, we've got the trunk, and then we've got the bumper, and then we've got the tail lights, then we've got the top, and then we've got our tires under the tail lights. See how I used the space here? I've got to use that same space all the way up. So here we've got a car. It's not going to be quite as big as the other car. I'm using all of this area. And these lights are going to be red because tail lights are always red, especially when they're driving. Okay, you can make your car more beautiful than mine. Okay, I'm going to go from here to here. That's our bumper. There's our trunk. There's the top. There's the wheels. Here's the tail light. Okay, I can't see the driver. I can't see the wheel. I can't see any of that. I'm going to use this area right here. I've got to get smaller, don't I? See how all of a sudden my stuff wanted to go this way? That's why we've got to use that right here, so all of our lines stay even, stay nice and straight. Look how small this car's got to get. Okay, oops, we've got one right here. Now let's look at the cars coming towards us. What are we going to see on the cars coming towards us? We're going to see the tail or the bumper, and we're going to see the, there we go. We're going to see the steering wheel maybe. We're going to see the headlights. Okay, so let's make a car right here. We still have a bumper. Then we have the front of the car. Then we've got the top of the car. Which side is that person going to be driving that car on? Right here. So here's our steering wheel. And here's our headlights. Here's our tires. Because we've only got 1 point per vanishing point, we don't see that those tires are round. We only see that they're there and getting smaller and smaller as they go away. Got a lot of traffic on our road, don't we? Okay, so we've got our perspective going here. We can see things getting bigger and littler. If you wanted to, we could come out here and go like this. And then we're going to have a sidewalk right there. We could make a building. Okay, we could get rid of this line right there because we don't need it anymore. And maybe we could put some signs on our road or on our buildings. And on this one, we could put Claire's, all right, that's Claire's Boutique. We can come down here. We gotta know how big to make those doors. There's the door to her shop. She can decorate the door to her shop any way she wants. We could have Jaden's. And he needs 2 lines here. Supplies. And we could have just Zeke's. Z-E-K-E. You can put windows on it. You can do anything you want to these buildings. We could make Jaden's building not be so tall. Jaden's building might be a small building. We can put his door as a round door. And Zeke might have a door like that. And maybe the next building is going to come up a little bit higher. Okay? So you decorate your street any way you want. But I'm going to leave Jaden's the same size. You can then put clouds in the sky, some birds in the sky. Maybe there's an airplane in the sky. You do what you want, decorate it the way you want, but you have to post it, okay? That's this lesson. 1 point vanishing point, right here. Our perspective is right here. We're going to get to the next perspective, next lesson. See you then.